alaikum. Welcome to the next lecture. Today in this session, in the topic of my discussion would be reference to the context, RTC. Reference to the context is question number 2 of section B in your paper. Here I have pasted the picture of that very part, that is section B, question number 2 of your paper. As you can see, 3 extracts have been given to you in this question from the play The Merchant of Venice, and you have to attempt any two. There is a choice. Each comprise of 5 marks, and in total the question is of 10 marks. So I tried to draw a plant in order to explain to you the 3 different steps involved in RTC, reference to the context. Hope it would be helpful. So there are 3 main steps: reference, context, and the most important one, explanation. All 3 main headings I have written in this dark green color. As you can see, the reference over here, then context, and then explanation. In the very first step, that is reference, you have to give the reference of the given lines or of a given dialogue in 3 following steps: 1, 2, and 3, in which you have to tell that who said this to whom, who said to whom, which means that you have to explain that the given dialogue is uttered by whom, okay, and to whom. Then next you have to explain in the reference that when and where the lines have been taken from. Okay, so this was all about the reference. These 3 steps are related to reference. Clear? Moving on to the next step, that is context. In the context, you have to write about before and after. Before and after here means that what happened before the given dialogue or the given lines and what happened after that. Okay, so in the context you have to write about before and after, which means that you have to explain what happened before and after the given extract. Understand? Okay, now moving on to the next and the final step, that is explanation. This final and the most important step of RTC, or reference to the context, in this, which is in this plant, I have considered the roots of the plant as the explanation. So you see, as the roots of the plant, you can see in this picture, the more the roots would be strong, the more the plant, that is the RTC, be strong and good. So in explanation you have to explain the given lines only, okay, nothing else. So these were the different steps involved in doing this question, each important in its own sense, all 3, reference, context, and explanation. So you cannot skip any one of them. Now moving on to the next slide, where I will show you an example of solution of the extract. So I have selected this dialogue as an example, which is: now by two-headed genus, it starts from here. Now by two-headed genus, nature had framed strange fellows in her time, some that will evermore peep through their eyes and laugh like parrots at a bagpiper, and other of such vinegar aspect that they will not show their teeth in way of smile. Okay, so here is the explanation of those lines, that they'll not show their teeth in way of smile, though Nestor swear the jest be laughable. Alright, okay, So here is the explanation of those given lines. The first step, keeping in mind the first step, that was reference. Okay, so you see I have followed the block pattern over here. Block pattern means I have left line after each step, and do notice that I am not differentiating each step by giving different or separate headings. So starting with the reference, these lines have been taken from Act 1, Scene 1 of the play The Merchant of Venice by the world's greatest dramatist William Shakespeare. This dialogue is uttered by Salarino, one of Antonio's friend, to Antonio. The scene took place, or the scene is laid in the street in Venice. Okay, this is the small little reference, and I have not given any heading on the top. So, and then after this first step, that was reference, moving on to the next step, that is context. Without giving any heading, I am just separating the first from the next by leaving a line in between. Okay, so the context is Antonio, a Venetian merchant, is out with his friends Salarino and Selenio on a street in Venice. He complains of a causeless melancholy which makes him depressed. His melancholy provokes several explanations from his friends Salarino and Selenio, but Antonio does not accept any one of those explanations as the real cause of his sadness. Okay, this was the context, that what happened before those given lines and then what happened after that. And as you can see, this contracted form of does not written in the bracket in red, that is doesn't. Why I have written it over here? Just to clarify that you are not allowed to use contractions in formal writing. Okay, it is considered wrong. Fine. So this was the context. So again, leaving a line in between and moving on to the explanation. The next step is explanation. At this point in the given lines or in the given dialogue, Salarino swears by Janus, the Roman god of gates and doors. Again, you see I have written this sign, this ampersand sign used instead of and. That is also not allowed in formal writing, so it is considered wrong. Who can see both ways that nature has created people of strange temperaments. Okay, it continues in the next slide. There are some people who are so jovial and merry by nature that they laugh at trifles, even as parrots are supposed to laugh to see a person playing on a bagpipe, while there are others who wear such a sad, gloomy expression that they cannot. So, see, again I have written here the contracted form of cannot. I forgot to write it in red. That is also wrong. You're not allowed to write cannot like this in contracted form. This is called the contracted form. So that is also wrong in formal writing. They cannot be made to laugh even at such a fine joke as is likely to make Nestor, the gravest man in this world, laugh loudly. Salarino swears by Janus, the two-faced god, because he has to describe people of opposite temperaments. Nestor was a king in Greek mythology, noted for his seriousness and gravity. This speech reveals that Antonio is a man of melancholic temperament. There is no other cause for his melancholy. So, this was all about explanation. Okay, so you see, moving back to the previous slide, I have this was the reference, then context, and then explanation, each separated by leaving a line in between. Okay, so I have not marked different steps by giving the headings, and I followed the block pattern, separating each step without giving any headings, because headings. So today's lecture was all about RTC, reference to the context, Hope this explanation of RTC would be clear, and the plant that I used to explain this all would be helpful. And now moving on to today's assignment. There is an assignment for you in which I have selected this dialogue. My wind, cooling my broth, would blow me to an ague when I thought what harm a wind too great at sea might do. I should not see the sandy hourglass run, but I should think of shallows and of flats, and see my wealthy Andrew docked in sand, wailing her high top lower than her ribs to kiss her burial. So your job is to explain this given extract with reference to the context, okay, the same way as it is explained in today's lecture. That is all for today. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.